Welcome to Garden Wise Adventures. My name is Malie and today is mid-November. It's Monday on the week of Thanksgiving, and once again I find myself behind on my yard cleanup. In the last couple of videos it sounded like I was way ahead, but no, I'm not ahead. Now I am behind again. So we're going to race the weather. True to typical form, the weather has dipped into the teens at night and in the upper 30s, low 40s during the day. And right now it is freezing cold. Well, let's take that back. It's not freezing, but it is really cold, and I have got to just get this work done. Now, we're going to get as far as we can this year. I'm going to give you a tour of what my water-wise landscape looks like before fall cleanup, and then I'll give you a tour of what it looks like after cleanup. And in the before cleanup, what I'm also going to show you is all the beautiful fall colors you missed. There were some gorgeous fall colors. There's still just a touch of fall color happening, and we're going to show it all to you. So let's get started and see what it looks like now. So here we are in my side yard. We've got my trusty bucket and my clippers. We're going to be cutting things back. Now, we cut some things back. We don't cut everything back. We're not going to cut the hydrangeas back. We want to wait until spring so we can see what has died there. This is supposedly a semi-evergreen salvia, so I think I'll leave that. We're just going to take the dead away from the irises to make sure that they don't rot out. And because I don't know how these new Artemisia, these are the, I'll put the name on the screen, but curly something Artemisia, I don't know how they act over the winter, so we're just going to leave those up and see how they act. We're going to cut back all of my mums. We're going to leave the butterfly bush. And we're going to cut the seed heads off of my chase tree. We're not going to do a heavy pruning or even very much of a structural pruning at this point. We're going to wait until spring then. We're just going to take the ends off where the seed heads are. And I basically do that because those are kind of messy over the winter and I don't like the mess. We're going to cut back the peony back there. And look, we still have some glorious fall color on this little devil 9-bark. I absolutely love these plants. It's one of the dwarf 9-barks. It doesn't get much bigger than this. And it has gorgeous color all season. We also don't even touch the Glow Girl Spirea. They just kind of stay looking like that all winter. We'll clean up around it though. I do clean up leaves and we'll go over that in just a minute. This is a panicum grass. As soon as the snow hits it, it's going to smash it flat to the ground, so we do cut those back. And we cut my hardy hibiscus back by halfway. I don't like to cut it all the way to the ground, mainly because I've read you're not supposed to. And also I think they are prone to splitting at the roots if they get a lot of water collecting at the roots. So we'll just cut it halfway and then we'll cut it back the rest of the way next spring. We'll cut back all of my lilies. We're going to cut back the dying sedum. And we've already cut back the lavender. And then we'll rake up all the leaves. Now, despite all the garden memes that go around about leaving the leaves where they belong, I don't like to do that. Number one, I don't like the messy look. Number two, being at the bottom of a hill, I'm the recipient of everybody else's leaves that they don't rake. And I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be the person whose leaves blow into the next person's yard. And I also like to have things look clean over the winter. A messy yard, looking at it, waiting till spring to clean everything up, just brings me stress. And I have enough stress as it is without adding to it, so I like to clean everything up. That being said, for these sundancer daisies that still have blooms on them, even though it's been freezing cold, I'm just going to cut the dead flowers off of these and leave the rest of it. And then we'll cut those back in the spring. I may even leave some of the seed heads so that they will reseed, because like this one right here is reseeded. They do tend to reseed, and I think that's a good thing. We're going to pull out all the sweet alyssum. Those are annuals and they're pretty much done now. Any of the sedum that looks kind of smushy and gross, that's going to come out. And when I say come out, I just mean cut back. The Zauschneria or hummingbird trumpet has been ready to be cut back for weeks. We're going to cut back the drops of Jupiter oregano over there, but we're going to leave. The grasses that we're going to leave is my blue oak grass, the blue fescue, and my overdam feather reed grass. Now the overdam feather reed grass, I think in the spring I'm going to be dividing because they're starting to get hollowed out in the center. And if there aren't enough reasons to love strawberries, their fall color just puts it over the top. If you grow it for nothing else, grow them for the fall color. But then of course the spring berries are a huge draw too. But strawberries are amazing ground covers, so those will stay just the way they are. As I said, all the mums will be cut back. We're going to pull out my Peruvian ground cherries. Look how many did not have time to ripen. None of these had time to mature or ripen. Every year is a little different. Some years I get a ton and some years I get very few. This year was about middle of the road. I got some, but I didn't get a lot. I could have had a lot though. Look at how many were on that bush. We're going to cut back the catmint. And then just clean this whole area up. Now this is another one of those artemisias, the curly artemisia, and it looked like it was trying to flower over the summer. These are new this year. And it got just this really neat pink coloring to it. I don't know if that's supposed to happen or if that meant it was stressed, but I really like that contrast of color there. And then in the interest of snow removal, every single one of these plants that you see at the base of this fence line over here, these are all columbine. And even though they're happy and healthy and will grow nicely all winter, what we're going to do is going to be cutting them back for the sake of snow removal. This is my sidewalk to shovel. I shovel it every winter. Anytime it snows, because we do have kids running back and forth through here and I don't want them having this, it's steep enough a hill as it is to have to deal with ice on the sidewalk. So those will all be cut back. Then my backyard back here is going to be cleaned up another day, but I wanted to show you the before. I think we're going to clean up a little less than we've cleaned up in the past because I am going to be bringing in more bark mulch next year. One thing that does need to be cut back still, I have not cut back my blackberries despite having that class by Dan Owen, which I'll link above. We'll use his techniques, but I need to cut back my blackberries. I'm going to clean up all the leaves on the hillside. We're going to leave my macrophylla hydrangeas the way they are, and then we'll cover them in the spring if we're going to get a really late spring frost after they've leafed out. They're extremely hardy and don't need to be covered over the winter. So when they start leafing out and then we get a deep freeze, that's when we have problems. But I found that if you just throw a frost cloth over them, they do absolutely fine. We're going to clean up the lawn extra well because I don't like leaves on it at all. Any leaves, especially even like this, they're already starting to clump down and they create bald spots that it really is hard to get those bald spots to come back. The color is dying down on my cotoneaster, but it was glorious, and I'll show you a picture of what it looked like in its peak. But that's what we're going to be doing. We're also going to rake all the leaves off that hill. If I don't rake the leaves off the hill, if you can see how thick they are, they come from the poplar trees that are my neighbors. If I don't rake the leaves as much as I can off the hill, they form a barrier that blocks the rainwater. This is mostly watered by rainwater. I do have a drip irrigation on here. I just don't even know how much it's working. But we don't want water rushing down the hill rather than soaking into the hill. So we rake as many leaves as possible out of it. And it takes a long time. And by the time I'm done, I have a huge pile, but all of that goes into my compost pile and I use it to amend my garden beds. Garden beds are already put to bed. There's not a ton to do here in the backyard. I've kept up with the backyard pretty much. There's just a few things to cut back, like that yarrow right there. So we'll get that cut back. So that's what it looks like right now before cleanup. And I've thought about filming some of the cleanup process, but I really don't have a lot of time and I don't have a lot of energy right now. I haven't been feeling too well for the past week and I'm coming out of whatever that was. So I really just need to kind of do myself a favor and get this project done. So I'm sorry about not showing you all the work that I'm going to do, but I will show you what it looks like afterwards. So while we're waiting to see what it looks like afterwards, let's look at all the fall colors that you missed. Well, it's day number 2 into the cleanup and the end of the day, and we got the front yard done and all of the backyard. Everything that needs to be cut back is cut back. So the only thing left is the leaf cleanup in the backyard. So let me show you what my water-wise landscape looks like after the fall cleanup in the front yard, and then we'll show you what the backyard looks like and show you how much stuff we already have in the compost pile. So now it looks a little bit different. This is my side yard. I did cut back my chase tree just a little bit. Still got the glorious fall color on my little devil 9 bark. And everything is just cut back and looking really nice. And I love that at the end of November we still have color. Now most of this stuff will stay up over the winter, and this will be my winter interest. There isn't going to be anything else that I'm going to get cut back, so the perennials, any of the perennials that you see that are little and green, those will die back and disappear. We cleaned all the leaves out around my succulents. They should do just fine over the winter, as long as we don't have too wet of a winter. The deer tend to eat the succulents out of this planter here. And I decided I'm just going to leave the plants in here. They're still blooming. We've still got snapdragons, and we've still got color on the kale, and it's still edible, as is the Swiss chard. So we'll just leave those until they die, and then we'll pull them out. Now this is germander. Germander is evergreen all winter long. The only issue is the deer love it. So last year the deer ate it to the ground, but it came back. This is Rocky Mountain penstemon. It's also supposed to be evergreen, but the deer ate that last year, as they did the honeysuckle. This is a box honeysuckle. Hopefully this year the winter's not going to be so bad that the deer, that the deer stay in the mountains and don't come down and eat out of my yard. But if they come eat out of my yard, it looks like things grow back. Lavender is evergreen here, so we'll have the lavender all winter long. The partridge feather will stay up. I don't cut back my strawberries until spring. They don't keep the fall color all winter, but they have leaves on them. The blue oak grass and the overdam feathered reed grass will look the same all winter. Everything else is cut back. And the thyme also tends to stay mostly evergreen over the winter. Now with all this color on the strawberries, I absolutely love the color on the strawberries. That's just another reason to landscape with them. The only other grass that I leave up all winter long is the Mexican feather grass. It has beautiful texture, and it stays standing most of the winter. Pine leaf penstemon is another one that's evergreen that will stay all winter unless the deer eat it. And my hellebores, or Lenten rose, are also evergreen, and they will bloom really, really early, probably in February. We have some more over here. We have 2 over here and 3 over there, so there's 5. I'm really excited to see these bloom. Now look at the color on this too. I may have to add more of these. This is a barberry. They are not invasive in my area, but this one is, let's see, this one is Concord. And I had no idea the fall color was so glorious. And I absolutely love the color on my medlar. It's very, very rare that we get to see the color on the medlar. Usually we get a freeze, early October, a deep freeze that drops all the leaves off all the trees. But we didn't this year. They had a chance to change colors. And we've got my bucket that we've got to dump still. We cut everything back through here. Got to kind of clean the leaves up just a little bit. But we cut back all of the plants on the hill over there. We've still got the hill to scrape down and the leaves on the grass to clean up. I love seeing all my garden beds cleaned up. This gives me a lot of hope for the spring. This is another one that I'm just going to see what happens if I leave it and wait until next spring to cut it back. This one takes forever and a lot of hand strength to cut back. I used to have a hedger that I would use on it, but my hedger broke. I don't have that anymore. And it will die back over the winter. So this will die to the ground over the winter and then come back. So maybe next spring it'll be easier to clean up. Got all the leaves under the grapevines to clean up. All my garden beds are buttoned up and ready to go. Rosemary is looking good. I'll link a video up above to show you what happened with my rosemary. This rosemary is now probably 1/8 of the size that it used to be. Used to span all the way across and come all the way over to this side. And we lost most of it last winter, but we still have this side right here. Got to clean up this area. Almost all the leaves are down. And this is what my compost bins look like so far. And we still have all the leaves in the backyard. They're going to be completely chock full. And I have not moved much off of this pile. I've been mostly piling everything that I've cut back in the front yard and in the backyard in these compost bins, plus the leaves from the front yard. Now it feels so good to be able to have this, at least the front yard, completely done. That will help this winter be a very calm and peaceful winter for me. I'm not going to dread a cleanup next spring, because spring is one of my very busiest times for my landscape design business, and that's to be expected. So I hope this video has been helpful for you. If it has been helpful, I hope you like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and go have a wonderful garden adventure.